Controversial internet sensation and YouTube star turned boxer Jake Paul has been making rounds on the internet as a new member of the sports industry. He's set to fight against Tyron Woodley on August 29, 2021, but the YouTube star has been accused of using steroids. What effect does this have on his upcoming fight, assuming he does use the medication? Tune in to find out more. Is Jake Paul using steroids? People claim the YouTuber is not clean. Ever since Jake Paul defeated former MMA fighter and wrestler Ben Askren last April 2021, Paul has been on the news frequently. And now with an upcoming match against former UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley, people are scrutinizing the internet sensation's every move. And a lingering yet growing rumor in the industry is that Paul is believed to use illegal medication, steroids to be specific. Firas Zahabi, the coach of the former actor, is convinced that Paul may be using substances. In a report published by Sport Bible, Zahabi claimed, "I didn't want to mention it, but my number one factor, Jake Paul's corner, they're going to be on all sorts of substances." He also added, "I don't think they test, maybe the week of the fight, but there's no USADA. I didn't want to say, but I think that's a major factor. When I say he's bigger and stronger and he's more athletic, I think he's basically on PEDs. I hate to say it, but I definitely think Jake Paul is going to be on PEDs. It exists in the world of boxing, just like it exists in MMA. PEDs, a shortened term for performance-enhancing drugs, are used to improve any form of activity performance in humans. These drugs are quite taboo in the sporting industry, but doping has been a popular yet controversial subject in sports. There's a governing body in various sports that has a long list of banned substances and drugs used by athletes and bodybuilders. Zahabi also believes that Woodley will come clean on their upcoming match against Jake Paul, stating, "I don't think Tyron will be on PEDs. I think Tyron will be totally natural. Does it make a difference? It absolutely does." The MMA coach concluded his comments saying that this match may be tough for Woodley, but he still believes that the UFC champion will be a better fighter. This is a very tough fight for Tyron. Why would Tyron Woodley possibly lose this fight? One, the guy he's fighting is bigger, and he's a big puncher. Joe Rogan on Paul's boxing skills. He can box. UFC color commentator, comedian, and podcaster Joe Rogan expressed his worry for Tyron Woodley in a podcast episode with Josh Dubin last June 9, 2021. Woodley punches real hard, and when he doesn't have to worry about wrestling, doesn't have to worry about getting as tired, and can pick his shots, he'll be the most dangerous guy Jake Paul has ever fought for sure, Rogan said on his official podcast titled The Joe Rogan Experience. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he wins. I think Jake Paul can box. Tyron Woodley's accomplishments are no joke, considering that he managed to defend his welterweight championship belt 4 times. He bears similarities with Ben Askren, who was also a standout collegiate wrestler before he shifted his focus to mixed martial arts. So far, the 39-year-old has 19 wins, with 7 of them being knockouts. Yet Rogan warns that Paul may be his most dangerous opponent to date. Based on Paul's past victories, he's dead set on proving the world wrong in whatever way he can and making a sensation along the way. If you remember, he knocked out NBA star Nate Robinson with a single punch last 2020, which made headline news everywhere. If you look at Nate Robinson's fight, I know Nate Robinson didn't know what he was doing, but the way he landed those punches, he cracked him and knocked him out moving backward, Rogan described in his podcast. He can move backward and then plant. He doesn't have big wind-up movements. His brother has more wind-up shots. His brother was throwing more windmill-type arm punches. Jake throws things straight and hard. They're much more dangerous. But Woodley doesn't back down easily and has vowed to rid the world of Jake Paul virus. "Easiest fight of my career and biggest purse of my career all in one night," Woodley told ESPN back in June 2021. "Basically, they brought me on to take out the trash. I can't wait to shut this up. This is getting done for the culture, the whole MMA community and boxing community, to rid this guy of combat sports." Woodley's manager, Malki Kawa, already announced that they already negotiated a rematch clause in the upcoming bout. That's how much this is a scary fight to them. If we win this fight, if Jake Paul wants it, then we have to run it back with him. This is a major legacy fight, Kawa continued to explain. Could you imagine if Tyron Woodley had lost his last 4 fights, comes in, demolishes this guy, or say it's a really good fight, Tyron pulls it out, goes and does another rematch, gets paid even more for the rematch. Let's say beat him twice in a row and then decided to hang the gloves up forever? George St. Pierre thinks Jake Paul could definitely beat Woodley. Contrary to what GSP's coach said, the former MMA now actor thinks otherwise of the problem child. St. Pierre even went as far as saying that Paul is a very nice guy in an interview with TriStar Gym that was uploaded on YouTube last June 29, 2021. GSP even expressed his fondness for Paul and supported him, saying, "I'm not one of the haters, and Paul actually is a very nice guy." The former mixed martial artist also explained that boxing and MMA are completely different sports from one another. "It's a different sport. When I was training, when I was world champion, I was boxing with some great amateur boxers that were not world-class amateurs, but they were great amateur boxers, and it was good training." He continued, stating, "It's a completely different sport, and just to put that into perspective, I believe if you would allow dirty boxing in boxing, you would have a total different set of champions. Because you change a rule, you change the game." Woodley has more experience in combat sports than Jake Paul, but it's a different game. It's interesting. As a fan, I'm going to watch it for sure. Based on what he heard from his colleagues, GSP stated that his colleagues saw Paul training hard for his fight and have heard good things about the boxer. I knew because I know people that were training at the same gym as Paul and they told me that he was training very hard, GSP added. And I know that Ben Askren because I know Freddie Roach only went for a week to Freddie Roach's and he was not doing great. UFC President Dana White's prediction on Paul versus Woodley fight. Woodley will knock out Paul. UFC's current president, who's known for several strained relationships with fighters and is also pretty vocal about his dislike for Paul, still believes that Woodley will knock out the emerging boxing sensation. In an interview with Mike Swick's podcast, White vouched for Woodley's capabilities as a boxer. Tyron Woodley has punching power, White began. Obviously, he's put a lot of dudes to sleep in his career. Tyron Woodley doesn't look like the Tyron Woodley of the past that was putting everybody to sleep. He hasn't won a fight in 3 years. He's going to be 40 years old, but I will give it to Jake Paul. He's at least stepping up in there with a guy who can punch. White is also aware that more and more people are putting their bets on the problem child, but he thinks that people will favor Paul because he's much younger than Woodley. That's because it has to do with Woodley's age and hasn't won a fight in 3 years. You tell me when is the last time you saw Woodley look like Woodley, but I'd have to go with Woodley by knockout. Even White is aware of Woodley's predicament and that he's been on a losing streak for years now, but he still roots for the 39-year-old boxer. Listen, man, Woodley should knock him out, but again, the Tyron Woodley that you talk about, that was the champ, isn't the same guy he was 4 years ago. With the majority of the world against him, Paul is confident that he could take down Woodley and has continued to taunt the boxer earlier when their match was announced. Paul quickly took to Twitter his thanks for Woodley, tweeting, "Dear @T Woodley, thanks for being the second MMA fighter on my hit list. August 28th, the 5-time UFC champion is getting knocked out by a Disney actor. The former Disney star even has a long list of people that he intends to shut up with my fists," which he told ESPN. "And as I enter my 4th pro fight, I'm excited to knock the first one off the list by challenging myself against a 5-time UFC champion known for his knockout power. Tyron's a seasoned striker who has fought the best in the world. I certainly respect his career, but I will be sending Tyron into a permanent siesta on August 28th. Of course, Paul also took a jab at White before he concluded his statement by saying, "Maybe this time UFC President Dana White will actually be a man and put his money on his former champion instead of trying to undermine my success like a jealous ex. Influencer versus MMA. Let's get it on. It's showtime." And with that, we're wrapping up today's episode concerning Jake Paul's alleged use of steroids, as well as what the predictions are on his upcoming match with Woodley. Until the next episode, thanks for watching.